The Eagles have landed right here at Saga 960. Miles Kristen joining us from nearby Madison, Wisconsin. And there must be some, I don't know if you're a big NFL fan, but Washington, now the Redskins have officially retired their name and the logo. They've been around since 1932, the National Football League team in Washington, D.C. Interestingly enough, I was just reading this story at CNBC. They don't even want to use the word in the story. You know, even in terms of factually, talking about the name of the team, even they don't want to use it. It just, Washington's NFL team officially retires name and logo after sponsor backlash. The NFL team in Washington, D.C., I'll say it, the Redskins, that's what they were called, and that's just a matter of fact, will officially retire the team's name and logo. The club announced today. The new name has not been announced, and the organization, which had its name since 1932, launched a review of its name after partners and sponsors began to criticize the team for failing to acknowledge the sensitivity regarding the name and logo. Miles, what do you think?
I think that the names of teams is kind of like statues. Like, there's definitely debates to be had. Yet in a time when, we got serious questions about police reform or the virus or the environment and what are the best ways to, have a safe environment with good air and good water. I mean, there's so many, and all the wars overseas, all the issues that we face today, and people focus on statues and the names of teams, and it's like there are more pressing issues that we should deal with immediately than get to those other issues. I mean, nothing compared to the fact that, like, we're in Afghanistan for going on 20 years, or, how are we going to get a vaccine or even treatment methods to deal with this virus? Those are the things we should be addressing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you heard much in the way of backlash from Native Americans over the use of the word Redskins? I have not, but to me this is just white liberals trying to virtue signal.
I mean, I think they'd probably be more concerned about their land and how, things like Dakota Access Pipeline and other situations like that where, things might not even be happening directly on their land, but their land is being negatively affected. I mean, you could look at areas in Wisconsin where they're trying to mine indigenous land, or, I mean, there's serious questions that we should be going over as far as, their personal property and their rights and everything. And I think in the end, the names of teams probably falls pretty low on the scale as far as the issues they're probably most concerned about.
Let's talk about Roger Stone, a free man. Is this going to hurt Trump? I don't think it is going to hurt. Roger Stone, of course, has been a Republican strategist going back to Richard Nixon, and he has been a solid supporter of Donald Trump. Really got railroaded on this matter. I don't see that he did anything terribly, of a criminal nature, except maybe made some mistakes around what he said, and he ended up being convicted in a matter that was very dubious, mistreated at the hand of the courts. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, has Roger Stone ever done anything illegal? Probably. But the very particular case that we're talking about is when he may have been involved with WikiLeaks or been some sort of intermediary between WikiLeaks as far as the releasing of all sorts of information on Hillary Clinton. Or so you go back to the 2016 election, and WikiLeaks releases all this information, basically saying that Hillary was involved in, massive multiple conspiracies and criminal activity and all this stuff. And the media and a lot of more people on the Democrat left side were more concerned about who released the information and how the information got released than what was actually being talked about. I mean, how much investigation actually went into, what was released? Very little at all. How much investigation went into who released it and how was it released? Well, essentially, Roger Stone's case, other people's cases, the big part of the impeachment trial was all about Russia and all this And it's like, we don't care about what was released, but we care about who released it? I mean, come on, this is kind of crazy.
Let's talk a little bit about Biden. There's a poll that's, some people say it's a shocker that actually has Biden ahead in Texas, deep red Texas, ahead by 5. I don't know. I see these polls and they just don't seem to. I don't buy it, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, Beto O'Rourke. Well, that's a whole other subject. But Beto O'Rourke in his run against Ted Cruz, of course, he lost, but he ran for Senate against Ted Cruz, and he actually did, good compared to other Democratic candidates. So there has been a push to make Texas a blue state. You think Austin, San Antonio, like a lot of this parts of Texas, there are big blue cities in Texas, but it's a huge red state. I mean, like I said last time, if they somehow flipped just Texas and every other state stayed the same, the Democrats would win by 2 electoral points. But, I think Trump could actually win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College, which would be kind of funny to see all the Democrats have to flip their position on the Electoral College and then support it all of a sudden. But I don't really trust the polls. At the same time, I do think it is possible at this point that Trump could lose just because of his handling of COVID, I think, is probably the biggest thing. And, he constantly does stuff that, I mean, I can't imagine even a conservative has to look back and be like, God, I mean, one of the ones most recently was when he retweeted a video of that guy in Florida yelling something so disgusting, I'm not even going to repeat it. And then Ben Shapiro even has to come out and say, oh, well, I don't think Trump was listening to the audio of what was in the video. And it's just like, God, I don't like going into this election. I mean, Biden is horrible. I don't like my choices.
And yeah, you've got to, but you're going to vote. I mean, certainly you can go. Is this going to be like a Gary Johnson type of libertarian candidate? I have no idea. But anyway, apart from that, it's going to be interesting. It's a kind of a race against time regarding the Durham probe, looking into the Russia probe and how that all got started. The pretext under which the Democrats, the deep state, the FBI, and others launched their surveillance of the Trump campaign. And then once Trump took over, they went after General Flynn, of course, whom they got. They went after all these people who had supported Donald Trump, including Roger Stone. And so they used this Steele dossier, which was just a pack of lies, which ironically they got from a Russian source, even though it was Christopher Steele is a Brit. But they gathered all this in order to undermine and ultimately destroy the Trump presidency. And so that's really what this Durham probe is about. The problem is it going to come out before the November election? Because I think Americans should understand what the Democrats were up to, how they colluded, and how members of how the deep state have undermined the Trump presidency right from the start.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to come out on both the candidates. I see a lot more revelations coming out about Trump, and I think with Biden, it's like, my God, between his son, Ukraine, the accusations made against Biden, I mean, you're going to see just terrible things come out on both sides. And, we got all these protests going on in the United States, and they're not exactly political. I mean, there's definitely the more Democrat side is fueling and funding the protests, but you don't actually see real concrete political things coming out of these protests. They're not talking about supporting a candidate, and a lot of times they're not even really talking about a specific policy other than some imaginary thing like defund the police. They're not talking about specifics about the war on drugs or actual specifics about policing. It's just like 3-syllable chant. And this protests that are going on right now, they'd actually could have a huge impact on the election. And they could even, had they organized sooner and done more, they could have actually probably stopped Biden from being the nominee. But Biden's pretty much the nominee right now without even the nomination happening, because the changes that they've made with the convention, they're no longer having the convention at the large arena. They've moved it to a smaller place. They're not bringing in state delegates to this convention anymore. So the nomination is already Biden's without the convention even happening yet.
But if the economy revs up again, I think people will go back to Trump, because that really was his strong suit. In a way, this spread of COVID-19 was almost designed to destroy the U.S. economy, the Trump economy, in order to undermine his reelection bid. I really believe that. But if, in fact, Americans do go back to work, and there has been some solid job numbers recently suggesting that that is happening right now, the tide could turn back to Trump in time to put him over the top once again. What do you think?
I'm surprised that the economy is actually doing as good as it is. I mean, with all the stuff we've gone through this year, you think we would be in a much worse situation. And, they've been giving a lot of people like $600 a week from federal unemployment plus state unemployment. Some people haven't gotten anything at all, which is insane. Like, some people are getting, more than $1,000 a month, and then other people are getting nothing. But right now, you got companies all over the country that are hiring, massively hiring, and they are having difficulty hiring people because for a lot of people, it's cheaper to stay home and not work and get unemployment than it is to actually take a job that pays less. And yet, that's going to be running out real soon. And so, we're going to see, over the next month and a half, or 2 months, a lot of people are going to have to go back to work. And so, I see the economy doing better once people go back to work and everything. I don't know if the economy is really what's going to save Trump or, help anybody, really. I think that's not the biggest factor. I think the two biggest concerns in the United States is who's going to address these protests the best and who's going to address the COVID situation.
All right. Miles, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Miles Kristen, check out Wisconsin International Radio, coming to us from nearby Madison in the great state of Wisconsin. Back with more after this.